What if I was wrong in this Mica Miller story? I am open to the possibility because we got some huge information that it just came out. So welcome to The Point. Let's get to it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
At this point, everybody following this story is very familiar with what Mica's friends and family have said. Her friends have expressed that Mica was optimistic about her future. Her family has raised concerns over the bruising on her hand and arm, the location of the body in reference to her items, those additional casings found at the scene, the 911 call, and if you believe your voice matters and an open conversation is something you prefer, hit that like button and leave a comment down below because we can't forget the scratches on her hand. But despite Mica making plans for the following day, her paying her car taxes, we also had that court hearing that was coming up and that nasty divorce. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office still deemed this a self-passing. And after that investigation was released to the public, at that point a lot of us said this is just a grieving family, right? Now to be fair, my very first video on this story speculated on the idea that Mica did this in an attempt to expose John Paul. But then we all heard people coming from everywhere speaking out and raising some very serious accusations against John Paul and other members of the Solid Rock Church at Market Commons. And let's continue to try to be fair because that's what we do on this channel. Those allegations from anonymous sources have two real big obstacles they have to overcome. One being if John Paul had done all these things people are saying he did through anonymous emails, then why wait now? The truth is the truth and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but to a degree I view a lot of these anonymous emails the same way I view celebrities speaking out against P. Diddy. And I mean if all these people knew then what they claim to know now and they didn't beat on a drum to speak out against all these atrocities, then to a degree they also own some of this responsibility. Now of course I'm not trying to shame anybody, but this is just how an open conversation works. The second biggest hurdle to these allegations is that a lot of these are just straight up illegal. And JP hasn't been charged with anything at this time. And the argument people make that he just can't be touched falls short to a degree. When you look up his criminal record, you can clearly see law enforcement has tried to touch him, so to speak, several times, even though it seems like he's getting pardons. But to the bigger question, what is this brand new bombshell information? Well, like a lot of y'all have said, and I agree, we got to consider the source here. It is important for everybody to do their own research and form their own opinion based off what they read and who they decide to trust. And this update comes from Robbie Harvey. And if you think this guy's credible, let me know down in the comments below, because he's a pretty successful content creator on several different platforms that seems to focus on victims of DV. And let's just all agree that those individuals need as many voices as possible, because as I pointed out in my previous video, the system that's supposed to protect those individuals has a whole lot of holes in it that absolutely need to be filled. But I can't at this point see anything right now to make the statement that Robbie's uncredible. And he said this right here. I've obtained text messages from John Paul Miller just one day after Mica Miller passed. On the evening of April 28th, John Paul is desperately trying to find the person who helped Mica file for separation just days prior to her passing. Remember, JP was served on April 25th, just 2 days prior to Mica's passing. He was also served Mica's request for a protection order. In the messages on April 28th, John Paul wants to know who gave Mica the money to hire an attorney. And what's interesting, John Paul says, the detective wants to know. According to the sources, no detective ever reached out looking for such information. John Paul blames the person who encouraged Mica to make such a decision to separate. He says it sent her into a depression and therefore she passed away. Because the messages carry vital information that's critical to this case and for the protection of multiple sources, I will not release them publicly just yet. I've been told the FBI is extremely interested in the information these messages contain. I will tell you this, these messages have nothing to do with the financial investigation. As of now, Mica Miller's passing is still considered a self-passing. Her husband, John Paul Miller, has not been charged with any crime. So if all this is true, why is John Paul allegedly worried about where Mica got this money from? That's my first big question. Now, if you have an idea, please feel free to let me know down below. But honestly, what is the deal here? The way I said it, y'all two are getting a divorce. Y'all both are wanting to go your separate ways. Whether she got that money from friends or family, Santa Claus or OnlyFans, and I'm not saying she had an account, but the point is, what is it to you? How she gets her money is of no concern to John Paul once they decide to separate. But the key part in that paragraph is he said the FBI is highly interested in that text message conversation. And those messages had nothing to do with any possible financial crime. So does this have something to do with Gavin's Law? Mica's actual passing? These alleged injections Mica received from John Paul? Or something we don't know about altogether? We have heard through several other channels on this platform like JLR that the FBI has been knocking on doors in the area. And the sheriff did confirm that the FBI is doing a parallel investigation. But if they aren't concerned about the financials, what else could it be? Because I was pretty certain that's where their eyes were going with this. This story has a whole lot of layers, so let me know what you think it is down in the comments below. Y'all be safe now.